All right. Thanks everybody so much for joining. Welcome to this week's session. I am thrilled to be joined again by our Senior Product Manager and expert in all things AR and denials, Bimal Sahoo. So welcome, Bimal. Glad to have you back.
Thank you, Kate. Really thrilled to be back on office hours.
Awesome. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about how AR and denial technology, specifically around automation, can help just improve the overall productivity and efficacy of your AR denial teams. So let's jump right in, Bimal. Let's start and talk about what the latest is in terms of automation technology for AR and denials and what we're seeing in the market.
Interesting. So, I mean, automation has always been in place since the early 2000s. But typically and traditionally, it's always started about how do we take a business function or a linear activity in AR and denial space and try to automate it, right? So it started with the billing systems of the EMRs stating that if this is a condition that you fulfill, what is the next set of action do you want to perform on that particular use case? And can we build rules around that? So everything's kind of started off with rule-based automation. Till a whole lot of technologies and platforms for automation came into place. And there are quite a bit of leading platforms, automation platforms out there, which organizations are taking benefit of. UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Pegasystems, Blue Prism, you name, there are a lot many out there. But typically the approach has always been about how do I identify a certain linear activity in my AR and denial management process, be it like detecting certain images or text from a document, or if it relates to submission of appeals, or taking a particular action on a particular claim, like that particular click on a button on a website, or parsing some information and taking it back. These are the kind of automations that we see is prevalent to some extent. And then there has also been great strides made in payment postings, where there are a multitude of rules that go into the bot that then says, okay, if this is the use case, then do this particular action or post it this way. So I think there's been quite a bit of adoption, especially in the last few years post-pandemic, as we face challenges with staff shortages. A renewed focus on automation is now in place. Though it's very difficult in early stages to actually justify the ROI behind most of these, most of these endeavors out here. But true to the fact is the world is kind of moving towards that way, so that it's best do what they are great at, apply their skills and their knowledge, whereas automation can help and assist them do all the manual activities that are needed in a consistent way.
What use cases are you seeing in terms of AR and denial management that are providing potential ROI opportunities for providers?
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the word ROI. So the word ROI stems out from saying, hey, I was kind of doing a particular action before, or a particular activity before. Now that we built in automation, what are the key metrics that it's helping me improve? Is it like bringing me more money? Is it like reducing my cost? Is it helping me churn my inventory faster? There are different metrics on which you can justify your ROI and your spends. So what we have seen is that through this traditional process of running bots across different processes, it's very difficult to kind of justify that, because as you can see, like when you have a whole rule-based automation, the challenge has always been about how do we maintain these rules? First of all, like how do we come up with all these rules? And then as guidelines change, then how do we kind of adapt to these rules? Who is going to maintain it? And that's where we see things falter out after a few months of initial beginning of automation.
Right.
So where the world is kind of now heading towards is AI and machine learning based automation. What it means is, how can the automation think and adopt
Mm,
a human-like intelligence, right?
mm,
So where things are kind of heading towards is, based on outcomes or the actions that are
mm,
being taken or the events that are being taken within that particular activity that we are trying to automate.
mhm,
Depending on what outcomes it generates, how can the system be intelligent to be able to determine, should we continue to do the same action? It may result in a failure, or should you want to kind of adapt to a new process or do an action differently that you need to map into your process. So AI and machine learning powered smart automation is the way that I believe is the way forward. Now, where can it help you automate, right? And why is it even challenging in AR and denial management space to kind of begin with? Where do you kind of begin with, right?
right.
Now, first, AR and denial management involves a whole lot of complex processes with virtually millions of scenarios, and it's very
Right.
difficult to kind of put a rule against each of those scenarios. So that
Right.
I think people have learned hard way. Like, it's very difficult to put a rule against each of these scenarios and to be able to maintain those rules, right?
Right.
Second, your peer guidelines are constantly changing. So it's very difficult for you to even scour through all these guidelines out and build rules against it, right? So it's very high maintenance.
Right.
The third, it's like you have different approaches, right? For resolving a particular account receivable claim. You were to maybe like appeal a claim, maybe fix the bill and rebill it, reprocess the claim. There are different multitude of these actions that you have to do in the AR recovery process.
Right.
And to add to the complexity of that, your teams are organized with different skill sets. Now, if
Right.
it's kind of coding denial, you would want it to be sent to the right people or the right folks to kind of do that, right? And you should have the right rules in place to be able to automate those kind of actions. So,
Right.
so it's some vast universe of different threads kind of connecting with each other. So therefore, starting off with the right use case is also important in generating the right ROI. So now,
Right.
what cases can you start off with? So typically in our experience, we generally recommend providers to start off with a very basic use case of statusing your claims are. So if you have a claim that's outstanding, has not been paid for, how do you put a right status to that particular claim, right? Is it based on your denial? Is it based on the number of days it has been passed and not paid? What was the last action that has been performed on it? What's the latest adjudication details on that particular claim? Start off with like very basic thing about getting the latest status of that claim and status it to the way that your processes are set up or your business processes and teams are constructed so that it flows into the right team at the right time, right?
Right.
That's the first use case that I would definitely recommend, and that has proven to generate quite a bit of ROI, because as you can imagine, they're touching the claims or working on the claims at the right time and at the right moment, not working on something that doesn't need their attention. So in such cases, as you can see, you definitely would see an uptick on your ROI of your automation efforts. The second scenario that we see is about at the time of billing, once you have kind of build a claim out, how can you be best prepared to, I mean, kind of anticipating, could it be a denial on it, right? And you can use AI and machine learning to help you predict the occurrence of a denial in the future for certain claims that you have built up. Now, AI machine learning can scour through your data, your historical data. It can learn based on procedures, payers, providers, what different scenarios are there for this particular claim that has been billed out, and for these, what has been a historical rate of a particular denial, uh, and what kinds of denial. So then my team is kind of already anticipating that this is the kind of inflow of inventory or denials that they're going to receive in the future based on all these different claims that we build up. Right? So that's the second use case. It's very difficult to kind of justify an ROI to it, though.
Right.
Uh, but typically, it has what has helped is it has improved the churn rate of your inventory. So where you'd see an ROI would be in your days in AR and your net collections. So you are basically trying to now overturn that denial. You may be able to kind of adjust it off, but that's okay.
Right.
You may not be collecting cash on everything, but at least
Right.
it's going to reduce your aging inventory.
Right. Right.
And another benefit that you kind of get out of it is to understand what your initial denial rates are and how can you prevent such denials from even happening, right? So that's where you see the ROI. The
Right.
third, and I mean, this use case is the closest to my heart because I see a whole lot of dollars that impacts, and this is about predicting recoverability on a denied claim. So let's say you have a claim that's outstanding and it's particularly denied for a certain reason. How can you predict what's the recoverability on this particular claim going to be? And predicting that recoverability is very important because you may see there is a $1,000 claim that's outstanding versus a $500 claim that's outstanding. By thumb rules, people always work on high dollar claims, but that's not always going to generate you the right ROI. So it may happen that your system would have, or your AI machine learning models would have learned from your data saying that this $500 claim is actually, with a very high degree of confidence, going to generate you maybe $450 out of it, because that's what we have gotten historically paid for with just one touch. So that's amazing. Whereas there is this $1,000 claim or $10,000 claim, which we have never historically gotten paid for, but people are still going to chase that because they see that high dollar claim that's out there, but it's not definitely going to generate you money. So if you're going to focus on improving your collections, your net patient revenue, bringing your AR down, then recovery prediction is one of the important use cases in AI and machine learning that can stimulate your recoveries and efficacy of your denial and AR management teams, right? It's not easy. It's not easy to kind of build a model right out of the gate. It requires a whole lot of effort. But once you have that in place, it really does wonder. We have seen, clients and businesses who have improved their collections by 15 to 20% from AR and denial recovery. Let's say they were recovering like $3 million a month. They're now doing like $3.5 to $3.7 million a month. So this additional $600 to $700 a month is amazing because it straight away goes to your bottom line and profits.
Right. Right.
This money you never saw was there before. We always thought we were highly all efficient, but this small recovery prediction as a feature can really improve the efficacy of collections.
Right.
Now coming
I don't know many practices that would balk at an extra $600 or $700K a month. I think that's pretty significant. So
yes,
sure, for sure.
And then coming on to the last set of cases, as I mentioned before, taking those linear activities, right? So what were our linear activities? What are the important linear activities? One is obviously the claim status check. The second one is definitely your appeals. How do you create an appeal letter? So if we take the case of appeals, how do we construct or create an appeal letter depending on the circumstance of that claim, depending on that particular denial, depending on the guideline of that particular payer? How do you create an appeal in their format? What kind of documentations would you attach given the different scenarios? So that's how you make traditional automation into intelligent automation. right? And then, of course, we are in this process of nascent process of automating things in an intelligent way. So there always needs to be a human review before the appeals go out. So how do you channelize a platform where appeals are created automated depending on the different scenario, and then based on that, how can a human review that and add on top of it or modify it? And the third is, how do you now integrate with the different mechanisms of submitting that appeal to the payer, be it like fax, mail, or your web portal or clearinghouse submissions. So how do you integrate all of those capabilities out so that you have an end-to-end process rather than just one small linear action?
Right.
And how do you now put AI and machine learning on top of it to say,
Right.
for this scenario that we did such a kind of an appeal is generating an outcome that is favorable to us, rather than for these different scenarios for which it's not favorable, right? So when it's not favorable, flag it out, remodify the processes, put it out to like the intelligent smart humans. They can figure out what the process should be for such different cases rather than blatantly appealing things out. Because as you might see, there are different guidelines out there for certain cases. Appealing a case like literally diminishes or basically eradicates your even chance of any recovery. It's much better in some cases to reprocess or refile a claim, right? So this is how the human and the AI, or human and the machine combination, can really do wonders for your organization. So these are the cases that I see and feel generate the best ROIs that we see some of the implementations that we have been a part of.
Great. Does AI and automation only improve productivity of AR and denial teams? And what other benefits does it create for the practice or the provider as a whole?
Sure. So when a practice and or a provider, they're looking at their revenue cycle performance, they're doing it a very high 360-degree view, right? And when you kind of correlate all these metrics, what are they concerned with? They're concerned with net patient revenue and my cash. Am I collecting month over month, right? So can AI and automation help you drive more cash? Absolutely. We just discussed how recovery prediction can help you, how some of this automation can help you churn your inventory faster. So therefore, you're touching more claims, you're going to get paid faster. So it improves your cash flows. How can you detect denials before denials even happen so that you are better prepared? That's another case. So all of these are kind of driving towards improving your net patient revenue and net patient collections. The second they're taking a look at is the net collection rate. For every dollar that I have contracted with my payers, how much am I recovering? And as we discussed, all of these is kind of moving towards improving those metrics out. Initial denial rates, they will always be looking at initial denial rates. I want to make sure my billing, coding, and upstream processes are intact so that I have lesser and lesser denials. So therefore, lesser and lesser work for my AR and denial teams. Now, all of these processes that we talked about definitely helps identify the patterns and to kind of support process changes in the front end and the middle office, so that there are cleaner claims out of the door and you get paid on the right instant. And if you talk to any revenue cycle leader, the first metric that they will always pull out is what's my days in AR and what's my AR over 120, how stale is my AR out there. So definitely, AI and automation can definitely help you out there because it's picking up the right claims that's getting paid or getting adjusted, getting liquidated out of your door without multiple touches, and you're recovering money. At the same time, your AR is reducing at the right time at the right place. So it definitely also impacts that. So we see, if you follow the entire gambit of most of these processes and try to automate it, you will actually see benefits across all of these metrics. That is super important for a provider to stay healthy in this environment of financial, I'm not said a crisis at this point, but we are all aware as we are moving towards recession, we need to be, not just penny wise, but also dollar wise.
Right, absolutely. So if I'm a provider listening to you speak today, this all sounds great, but can be a little daunting to know kind of where to start. So where can a provider start to incorporate AI and automation in their denial management strategy? So just where and how to start would be great information to have.
Sure. So if you have not incorporated any of the automation processes in your current AR and denial management set of functions, I would ideally suggest, before kind of diving into one specific activity, that, hey, let's try this out. But before doing that, I would ideally suggest to kind of first organize, gather your data around revenue cycle, because if you can't feed data to your AI machine learning or automation, it is bound to fail. It can't learn enough. It can't generate you the right set of outcomes that you are looking at. So having sanctity about your data, not having data silos, gathering all the data at a central point is a good way to start any of the initiatives around automation. So that's point number one. Point number two, I would say, after you've done this activity, now start mapping your processes out, or your AR and denial management processes. What happens when your claim gets 30 days old or 45 days old? What happens when you have a denial? What happens when you have a second denial after you resolve a particular denial? What happens? How many days do you have to kind of wait till you're kind of worked on a previous claim out? What happens when there is a certain denial scenario? To which team does it go to? Who is the owner for this process? So once you've kind of mapped this out, that's when you get a holistic picture about, hey, if I were to automate this particular activity, where all does it impact? Because this is the last thing that we would want to do. There is a set process and the team that's in place. And we are incorporating automation that breaks some of these processes out, and there is AR and claims sitting out there which nobody is paying attention to. The automation thinks it's the humans that are doing it. The humans are thinking it's the machine that's doing it. So this is the last place where you would kind of want to end up there, right? So kind of map those processes out, and then as you kind of figure out that particular one or two set of linear processes, ensure that the entire process from end to end is orchestrated either by the entire automation or the machine, or there is proper human and machine coordination available to ensure that the process starts from here and takes to the end. And if there are any discrepancies, if something fails, there is always a human backup to support those exceptions. It's only then can you start expecting ROI, because in most other cases, the metrics for your automation could say like, hey, I automated 50 different claims. But what if you missed 20 other claims that should have been paid but got missed? Right. So drawing boundaries around what we want to automate and setting the right expectation, training the set of people around it, having the right support in place are truly important before you embark on even a journey of automation. So this is where I would recommend to start off with, like once you kind of had this buy-in or a mindset to go the automation route, which you definitely should.
Right, absolutely. All really good advice. some folks tend to go like all in on automation and then, like you said, something breaks. And so it's better to be more strategic and smart in how you do that. So if I'm not doing anything right now with automation, AI, where do you recommend providers, or what do you recommend that providers look for in an AR and denial management technology partner?
Sure. I'm glad that you mentioned the word partner, because in revenue cycle, especially revenue cycle healthcare, you can't succeed without having a partner. Vendors don't make the cut, right? Mm-hmm. So you can always have a vendor that can always do X activity, but unless until they understand your business process, your specific challenges as a partner to your success, they or you both together are not going to succeed. So the first thing that you should look forward in a technology partner is to understand, do they have the right revenue cycle human expertise? Because if they do not have the human expertise, it's most likely they're going to be very, very dependent on you and your time to be able to guide them on specific business processes or challenges of what to automate on. And that takes up a whole lot of time. I'm sure we do not have all the time in the world to kind of do that, right? Or kind of bridge that gap between the technology vendor and the business process. So we want a vendor. As a provider, I definitely would love to have a vendor that has the human expertise, understands the specific business processes in AR and denial management, and the specific, and can relate to the challenges that I as an organization have, because my challenges are going to be completely different from a similar provider just down the road. So, and it depends on my payer mix, my patient mix, my kind of claims, what kind of services do I provide. So they need to be aware of, or should have the expertise to deal with. So that's number one. Number two, do they have the right technology stack? Because a generic stack of automating any or all processes generally doesn't work out. And we've seen massive failures on this. So do they have a revenue cycle specific technology stack? Because they need to understand that when we talk about revenue cycle, at least the key elements, claims, payments, denials, certain billing actions, appeals, they have templates or technology templates to kind of handle this kind of information. Building that from scratch is like building a new billing system. So you do not want to go there, right? And it takes a whole lot of time and effort, which is not totally worth it. So find a partner that has the relevant revenue cycle technology stack. The third, I would say, just don't look at AR and denial. So let's say you are going to automate some of the process of AR and denial management. Do not just specifically focus on finding a partner that's going to just solve this one problem. They should have a platform that spans across the entire revenue cycle, which means from patient access to billing to coding to payment posting. They have technology stacks that can cater to all of these processes. Because if they do not, then it comes back to point number two, that they have a very specific very specific offering to handle a specific offer, right? So because your automation initiative is going to grow. You do not want to have multiple different vendors. You want to stick to a partner that can scale. So that would be my third advice. The fourth is they should definitely have the experience to integrate with your billing systems, your existing clearing houses. They should have expertise with that. And we kind of underestimate that a whole lot, because we would have partners and vendors come to us and say, hey, we have experience working with Epics or Suners or ECWs or any other billing systems, NextGens, all scripts of the world. but their expertise may be very limited to a particular use case. So your vendor should, or your partner should actually give you that confidence that they can integrate with different systems. There could be a possibility of a direct integration. But more importantly than that, have they figured out any alternate ways of integration with your billing systems and clearinghouses and other core processes that can make your transition to automation smoother. So some of these are really important when you are choosing your vendor of choice.
Really, really good advice on where to start, Bimal. Any last minute words of advice, call to action, marching orders for folks that are listening in today?
Sure. I think 2023 is going to be challenging. It's going to be exciting. But as we see and hear about all the financial drain in the entire system, it's imperative that we move towards automation and AI machine learning that helps or aids us in improving our efficacy and productivity of the entire team or our organization as a whole. The more, I mean, as we all know, like 15 to 25 cents on a dollar just goes in administrative costs for healthcare, right? So what can we do and think about reducing that cost? Because if we can reduce that cost, it's going to immensely help the entire ecosystem as a whole deliver better patient outcomes and better patient experience. So definitely, I think automation and applying intelligent automation should be one of the most important thing, or probably in your top 1, 2, 3 in your agenda going into 2023. And there's no better time rather than now during the holidays up till like the year to utilize this time to be ready with everything that you want to do wonders in 2023.
Right. Good reminders, Bimal. Yeah, 2023 is going to be interesting. So now is the time to plan. Don't wait until 2023 is here to start new initiatives. So thanks again, Bimal. Lots of great tips, advice, recommendations as usual. I hope you all found this valuable and hope to see everyone back here next week.
Thank you, and you all have a wonderful day ahead.